Hello and welcome to the Sunday Recap Podcast. I'm Big Italy 42. He is Jason Gilbo at JGilbo11, talking about the NFL action. And first one, a lot of bad news for the teams that you and I like. But starting off at the beginning, if you want, we can just talk about the first half of the Colts game because first half wasn't bad. But the second half, Jacksonville scored 6 touchdowns in the second half, and for those of you that chased the Allen Robinson points, not that Allen Robinson wasn't a good play necessarily, but he did have a touchdown catch. It was 4 yards, and it was his only catch.
Yeah, that's brutal. I mean, I would have expected a much bigger day. I know he faced off against Vontae Davis, but still, it was Allen Hurns who did the job. Three catches, 105 yards, and a touchdown. We were talking before about that touchdown catch, and he just basically had an open field to just take it into the house. So if you had the Hurns, it was a big game for him.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think that Jacksonville puts up 51 points and Allen Robinson has one catch, but that's definitely what happened in this one. And on the Colts side, Matt Hasselbeck, I mean, he looks like he's 40 now. I mean, he just can't keep doing this for much longer. They're saying that Andrew Luck may not play one more week still, so not looking good there. But, I mean, fortunately, that division is such a mess that you really just, if you win one more game, you might get in. But T.Y. Hilton had 132 yards on 4 catches. If you were brave enough to play him with Matt Hasselbeck, you probably were one of about 4 people that played him. But decent game for him in what eventually turned into a blowout loss.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to take anyone from this Colts team, take Adam Vinatieri. Yeah. He's your best fantasy option.
Yeah, absolutely. Adam Vinatieri, get there, stall out your drive, get your field goal there. But hope you stay like 24 yards or further, so you at least get 4 points. But
yeah.
Either way, Bills and Eagles next up. Chip Kelly versus LaShawn McCoy. And LaShawn McCoy, he had over 100 yards total, like you mentioned, but not a great game. Kissed the field before the game. Like kissed the Eagles logo. I don't know what the hell that was all about. And then after the game, started throwing stuff. It wouldn't talk to the media. I mean, you lost. But it was kind of funny, though. Rex Ryan, in true Rex Ryan form, sends out one captain, and it's LaShawn McCoy. So if you hate Rex Ryan, I don't know why you hate Rex Ryan. The guy's hilarious. He's a good coach. And, I mean, stuff like that is just awesome. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, for entertainment purposes, Rex Ryan's just a god in the NFL. I mean, we need this guy. Not his brother, though. Well, we do need his brother because we do like picking, teams against him for fantasy. But, I mean, overall, this game was kind of meh, I guess, in the fantasy points department, just because we kind of expected a little bit more from the Bills, although Sammy Watkins really delivered yet again with 5 catches for 81 yards and a touchdown. But, I mean, a lot of it kind of stalled in the second half. Not much happened.
Yeah, it was one of those games that it looked at times like it was going to turn into the shootout that we all kind of hoped it would be, and then as we've seen, neither one of these teams that good of a team, and kind of blowing it in the big spots there. I mean, it looked like the Bills were going to take it late, and then interception. It was kind of an ugly fourth quarter, really, on both sides here.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, if you didn't catch my tweet, I just need some self. It's been a rough week. I just need some self, appreciation, but Brian Westbrook, he is now ahead of DeMarco Murray on the depth chart there in Philly. So he is the 4-string back there. So, yeah.
Wow.
Brian Westbrook coming back is ahead of DeMarco Murray.
That's insane. I mean, that's just a mess I want no part of at all. But Darren Sproles, as you know, I do love Darren Sproles. And he's the best one. I mean, that's subjective, of course, but I mean, he's been getting it done the last couple weeks, finding the end zone. So someone needs to score points for this team, and Nelson Aguilar did have one too. But if you played him, then I don't know what you were thinking. You didn't deserve that touchdown. Next up, 49ers and Browns. Nobody wanted to care about this game. There were some cheap options. Johnny Manziel autographing $100 bills before the game. I don't know that I would hand Johnny Manziel a $100 bill because I probably wouldn't expect to get it back. But either way, aside from that really stupid interception that he threw and then try to break a tablet on his forehead, he played well aside from that. And, I mean, he learned from it. But he said it after the game, exactly what I was thinking when he did that was that looked like a Johnny Manziel at Texas A&M, like, hey, Mike Evans, I'm going to throw this up as high as I can across the field. Just go get it for me. And he usually would. But you don't have Mike Evans and that Browns offense. So he's played well. He got the win, and Blaine Gabbert finally fell back down to earth after a couple weeks where he played better than he really is, and the Browns got a win. But But in all reality, at the end of the day, if you're a Browns fan, are you happy they get the win and mess up the draft pick? Probably not.
Yeah. I mean, I liked Manziel this week. I mean, he was a really cheap option. Didn't have a great game, but still decent enough for his price. And, he arguably could have had another touchdown if Brian Hartline decided to just get into the end zone instead of falling down within the 5. I mean, that would have been nice. But it was the run game. I mean, the San Francisco team is just awful against the run. It was Isaiah Crowell, 145 yards, 2 scores. Duke Johnson even had 78 yards. So, I mean, your Cincinnati Bengals get this Niners team next week, so I think we can hope for a pretty big Giovanni Bernard or Jeremy Hill game.
Yeah, go ahead and stack both those guys. I know I will be. Next game, an ugly one, but I kind of expect it to be ugly on the other side. But in true Lions fashion, scoreless game before the half. Matt Stafford has to score some points for the other team, so he made sure that happened with a really terrible pick six. And then the Rams, in true Rams fashion, tried to blow it late. Detroit scores a touchdown right around 2 minutes left, gets an onside kick, gets the ball back, and then they choke, of course. So really, once again, it was two bad teams, but it was the Lions knowing that Todd Gurley is the only weapon for the St. Louis Rams and still not being able to stop him. And kind of surprising to me, I had some shares of Lions defense. I mean, they played well against the Packers and much, much better teams than the Rams recently, but this just was not their day, and they just showed once again why they are the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, maybe it was the Hail Mary last week, and it just really deflated. They have no desire to go out and win any more games this season. That could be it, but I wasn't on Todd Gurley this week. I really thought Detroit would just stack the box like the last few weeks against the Rams, and that would be it. But completely wrong as he goes off for 140 yards and 2 scores. And, I mean, he really kind of set you apart as far as running backs go this week because not a lot of great weeks from running backs.
Yeah, absolutely. And then speaking of that, over here, a guy who was popular this week, Doug Martin in the Saints and Bucks game. 81 yards and a touchdown, but just 11 carries, which seems really strange. But the thing that was not strange is coming up to this game, we figured we'd hear Tim Hightower, CJ Spiller, who's going to get all the touches. Hightower, a guy that's been completely irrelevant in the NFL for a few years. CJ Spiller, the guy that used to be relevant, always injured, just couldn't find his role. And then Tim Hightower goes and sets himself a record for his most touches ever in a game. And, I mean, it wasn't a phenomenal game, like you mentioned, only 85 yards on the ground, but if you played him at minimum salary, especially on FanDuel, I mean, you did very well.
Yeah, just because he found the end zone. I mean, he wasn't an efficient day because he did just have 85 yards on 28 carries. But I guess going forward, I mean, it's pretty clear Hightower's the guy and Spiller's pretty much cooked in this league, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like that ship has sailed. And Drew Brees here got off to a fast start. Marquez Colston in true throwback fashion there with 2 early touchdowns and didn't really need a whole lot else after that. So encouraging to see Drew Brees get it done on the road, which is something he hasn't done much of this season or, I mean, really a lot in his career, but especially this season. So definitely a good game for him.
Saints defense holding a team to under 20 points. What the hell happened?
I know. Tampa Bay, I mean, you almost have to it has to be a gift. I mean, I feel like you and me, the rest of our DFC crew, could go out there and put up 20 points on the Saints. But,
I know, yeah.
Maybe we need an offensive line. We'll hire some guys to be the offensive line because I'm not doing that. But I'll go out and catch a couple passes. Titans and Jets next up, and I'll tell you what, we were talking before the show here. The Jets look really good. I mean, that defense looks phenomenal. And really, I mean, if the only thing your defense gives up is a touchdown catch by Marcus Mariota, then you've done pretty well for yourself. And obviously, the Titans aren't a great offense anyway. But, I mean, this Jets team looks scary. I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick looks good. They've got a decent running game. The defense looks great. I mean, this is a team that you don't want to play in the first round of the playoffs right now.
No. I mean, Brandon Marshall is just having an unreal second half right now, and he kept it going. 6 catches, 125 yards, and a touchdown. Decker found the end zone again. I mean, each saw 10 targets. I mean, these are just 3 guys you can really trust right now. I mean, as far as targets-wise, Fitzpatrick throwing the ball, and Chris Ivory, I mean, they just have such a balanced offense right now. Everything's clicking, and I mean, I can't get away from them right now over the last few weeks with how they're performing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's about as safe as you get going with some of these Jets guys right now. And I mean, it's been that way for quite a while. So, like you said, those are the guys. Lock them in, and you just know you're going to get your production there. Next up, the game that I don't want to talk about, but I kind of have to. Steelers and Bengals. Andy Dalton making the opposite of a veteran decision to try to tackle a defensive lineman low, and fortunately, he didn't hurt his shoulder, which is what I was most worried about when he dove down, but did break his thumb. Hopefully he'll be back for the playoffs. But like you mentioned here, I mean, this one was kind of a wrap once that happened. AJ McCarron had never thrown a meaningful pass ever. I mean, did have a nice deep ball to AJ Green, which I didn't understand why the Bengals didn't continue to throw deep to Green, because Steelers made it very clear they had no one capable of even coming close to covering him. But either way, Steelers kind of ran away with this one late. McCarron obviously forced into a game where he's already behind, having to try to do too much, and made a couple bad decisions. But fortunately for my Bengals, they do have the 49ers and Ravens 2 of the next 3 weeks. So it's one win, Steelers. Let's calm down. Bengals still going to win the division. But if you had D'Angelo Williams, who I did have quite a bit of, I'm not that much of a homer. I still like money. And D'Angelo Williams definitely paid off, especially with that late touchdown.
Yeah, he definitely did. I mean, the 2 scores really did it for him because it wasn't a productive day. I think Cincinnati still one of the better defenses. I don't really like targeting teams against them in the run game, but 3.3 yards of carry, but the 2 touchdowns really unmatched by other running backs this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And then this next one, we wish we could kind of just skip over it. Chargers and Chiefs. Chiefs defense looks elite, to say the least right now. Continues to look great. Antonio Gates, of course, the only Charger, as it is most weeks, that has a decent game. And really only 10 points for the Chiefs, but that's all they needed because their defense is just that good right now. And like you mentioned with the backfield situation, one, it's easy to avoid right now because you just don't need any part. You get the Chiefs defense in a matchup like this, and you don't worry about anyone else in the game, really, on either side.
Yeah, no, it's really disappointing because KC gets the Ravens, Browns, and Raiders over the next 3 weeks, and we're not going to really get a clear backfield to really target against them. So West is just kind of unplayable where, for a cheap play, he's been getting 50 yards and getting goal line looks, so I guess it's not a bad option there, but still, it just looks like kind of Jeremy Macklin's the guy to really shoulder the load if you want to take a shot at KC players right now.
Yeah, he's definitely been the spark plug in that offense. But that's about it for this one. Obviously a game that's 10-3, not a game that you're going to spend too much time on. Next up, Redskins and Bears, and Kirk Cousins must have been fooled. He must have thought that he was at home in this one because he played like he was at home. And against the Bears defense, it's actually been good recently. So this is another one where Jay Cutler had himself a nice game again, and this one was a sneaky good game for fantasy potential and not one that was very heavily owned at all.
No, definitely not, especially coming off last week where we had some Cutler-Jeffrey duos going on and they burned us against San Francisco. But this week, no. Jeffrey, 6 catches, 107 yards, and a touchdown. If you took a punt play with Zach Miller, he paid off big time, 5 catches, 85 yards, and a score. And looking at this game, it was kind of fun to watch because you had guys like Jordan Reed going off, and really kind of the popular plays from this game really paid off on their end.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, Jordan Reed. He's the guy that you want in that Washington attack easily. That's really the only guy that I have any sort of confidence in. We saw Matt Jones. A lot of people talking about him. He did have the most of the carries, but then Alfred Morris probably close to only needed. I think it was 2 yards, and that's about what he's capable of getting most times. So they said, "Hey, Alfred Morris, you're going to get 2 yards. You might as well get the last 2." So he got himself in the end zone there. A team that did not get themselves in the end zone or between the uprights or really much in the red zone, the Falcons, and Falcons just trying to help the Panthers get that perfect season right now. This one was just ugly. Ted Ginn, only 2 catches, but ended up being the number 2 receiver on the day with 2 long touchdown catches. Cam Newton just continued to do whatever the hell that dance is. Maybe I'm too old. I don't understand it. But it looks so good. So if you had any part of the Panthers, really the only disappointment is when you had guys like Greg Olsen, who I had. Your team gets up by 3 touchdowns early. You don't need to use Greg Olsen much. But, Panthers and what has amounted to a pretty bad NFC, really, across the board, the NFL. There's no elite teams, really. But, you got the Panthers and one other team we're about to talk about next, and that's really the only teams that look good in the NFC right now.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. And, this was a game that Carolina got out ahead and then kind of rested players. Jonathan Stewart, first time in a while, he hasn't seen over 20 carries, but did have 75 yards and a touchdown on just 10 carries, so he was really efficient and kind of hard not to be against this Atlanta defense right now.
Yeah, Atlanta, I won't say how the mighty have fallen. They were never mighty, but it's like them and the Chiefs kind of just switched at the beginning because the Chiefs were terrible. Now they're phenomenal. Falcons look great, and now they're just, they're horrible. They're just a bad team right now. So, pretty embarrassing loss there, and that's unfortunate for them. But, the Panthers, you run into a team that's as hot as them right now, and you weren't likely to win that game either. You just kind of hoped you can make it competitive, I guess. But that was not the case this week. And another one that was just not competitive, and much to the chagrin of you and I and other Thomas Rawls owners, got us to a decent start there. I think it was 6 carries, 44 yards. They went down with an injury, and Russell Wilson, it's almost like deja vu here. We get Russell Wilson throwing 3 more touchdowns to Doug Baldwin again out of his 5 total. And say what you want about Russell Wilson, but in my book, he's not too far behind Cam Newton as far as MVP race goes, because this guy has been absolutely incredible over the past about 5 weeks, taking a team whose defense is not as good as it once was. And, I mean, he's dominated offense with whatever he has left. I mean, no Marshawn Lynch, no Jimmy Graham. Really, Doug Baldwin's become the number 1 receiver, but he's never been an elite receiver before. So, I mean, Russell Wilson's making everyone look good right now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Baldwin 3 touchdowns. I think Tyler Lockett's been really impressive, really taking on a bigger role in the offense. He had 104 yards and 2 touchdowns, and this was a cheap stack if you went with it, because Baldwin and Lockett are not expensive at all. And same with Wilson over there on DK. So if you had this, you're probably sitting pretty good right now in that $3 millionaire maker out of 4 billion entries. But I mean, this game was amazing. Seattle just looks incredible right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jimmy Clausen did better than he did the first time against Seattle when he was with the Bears, but I mean, we can move on. It was the Ravens, and they're just a bad offense. So if you had Kamar Aiken, he did all right. He was a fine cash game play as usual, and that's about it. Next up, the one good thing that happened to my Cincinnati Bengals yesterday was the Oakland Raiders somehow, with these numbers you posted here, somehow beat the Broncos. And personally, at the end of the day, I don't care how it happens. It was ugly. But the thing, I don't know if you watch this game, but I got to ask this. You see the Raiders score a touchdown, go up 3 points, and go for 2. Explain that to me.
I can't tell you. I can never tell you what the Raiders are thinking, but I don't know. Maybe Janikowski was in the middle of a ham dinner on the sideline. I don't know what was going on. But
you got to do something. I mean, I could not believe that. Then Denver even got a field goal attempt later. I didn't understand it. But I mean, it worked out, I guess.
I guess. Yeah.
It was brutal.
That's the story of the Oakland Raiders right there. I guess.
Yeah. Well, and I will say this. Brock Osweiler didn't play badly. And I will say this. It seemed ridiculous on Denver's final offensive play. He's getting sacked on 4th down, and he just kind of throws the ball sidearm as far as he can. And it looked really dumb. But if you think about it, the game's over there no matter what. You take that sack, the game's over. There's about a minute left. You got no timeouts. You might as well throw the ball sidearm as far as you can. I mean, it went nowhere near anyone, but I kind of wonder why more quarterbacks don't do that, because what do you have to lose? You lose in the game anyway. So as bad as that play looked, I give Brock Osweiler credit for realizing, hey, the game's over here. Take a chance.
Yeah. I mean, that pass looked better than any of Peyton Manning's passes all season with his arm. So
yeah, that's true. At least it didn't get picked off. So, but yeah, this one, it was not a pretty one to watch. Really, like you mentioned here, Demaryius Thomas had a good game, but not relative to his price tag. Vernon Davis was solid, 7 for 74, but that was it. You didn't really hope to watch this game either. You just hope to not have invested heavily in any of these players, I guess.
Yeah, I hope you had the red zone package.
Yeah, exactly. Cowboys and Packers next up. Aaron Rodgers did what he needed to do, as he's done much of the season here, and Eddie Lacy, we hear the reports he's finally going to be back, and he was, and most of it came late, but over 120 yards, touchdown. This is the guy. He's like, I think he's the glue. I mean, obviously with no Jordy Nelson, I think he's more important to this offense than anybody else, because when this team can run, less pressure on Aaron Rodgers, doesn't have to throw Hail Marys to win games, and Eddie Lacy, I mean, looked good. James Starks, nice complimentary back, scored a touchdown there. I mean, it was a good Packers game. It was what you expect out of them, a good defensive effort and a solid offensive effort. I mean, this is the kind of balanced team that you don't want to play.
Yeah, and this is what we haven't seen from the Packers this season, which has really hurt them. And like you said, I mean, the balanced offense is really their thing, and we saw it because Aaron Rodgers came alive. He's not going to have the upside like he used to just because Nelson's gone. It's just not on the same page with his receivers. But this is the first time in a while Randall Cobb has actually shown up in the box score. I mean, 8 catches for 81 yards. Not great on his standards, but it's encouraging with how he's been this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the Sunday night game, I was really excited to watch this game, Brian Hoyer versus the Patriots, and then quickly realized that let's slow down on the expectations. It's still the Texans, and as we know, the Patriots love to take away the top option for the opposing team, so that meant DeAndre Hopkins was going to be a non-factor, and he was. And Brian Hoyer gets knocked out with a concussion. The Texans made all the wrong plays at all the wrong times, and the Patriots did what they needed to do. And if you watch the game, it didn't seem like the Patriots were 3 touchdowns better than the Texans, but because they played smart and didn't make the bad mistakes that the Texans did. And, I mean, plus, when you're at the 2-yard line and you got Rob Gronkowski and you can just toss the ball up and let him go get it, it's not really a fair matchup down in the red zone.
Yeah. I mean, New England just did what they had to do. They controlled the game, and that was it. Another running back injury this week with LeGarrette Blount leaving the game with a hip injury, and we saw Brandon Bolden fill in. It wasn't the James White show just because New England was out ahead for pretty much the entire game, but he did have a nice 2-yard rushing touchdown, but not much, anywhere else.
Yeah, and that was pretty much it for that one. It was not a pretty game, but Patriots got it done once again, so now they move back up into the number 1 spot in the AFC after Bengals and Broncos both lose. So, as we kind of expected, they would eventually. But either way, that'll wrap things up here for this week for the Sunday recap. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got lots of other great content at dailyfantasycafe.com.